Tara. Welcome back to our humble little podcast.
Hey, here we are. Welcome, everyone. Those of you that are new to our space, we are super glad you're here. Don't forget you can watch us on YouTube if you want to see all of this. But welcome to our newbies and to all the followers that just keep trucking along with us. We are happy you are here. So happy. Are we happy?
We are so happy and so grateful. And we have someone very exciting joining us today, Tara.
We do. And she's fallen into my lap um, through the summit. So some of you may recognize her if you're watching this, or you may remember her if you're listening to this. Jana Betlach is one of the most beautiful people I have the pleasure of working with. She's a shamanic practitioner, and I call her a shamanista. I I don't even know if that's a real word, people, but I call her shamanista. It just has a flow to it that I love. And welcome to our space, beautiful.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here, and to be with both of you is just an honor of the day. I love it.
Oh,
Yay!
yay!
I
Always,
love it when people are honored to be with us.
I am. I love getting to speak about the calling and the things that I get to enjoy, and meeting other people in the realm that I know are of the highest, utmost self-expectation and honor that integrity just makes my heart sing. So I'm so happy to have you too.
I love that.
I'm
Yeah.
feeling all the flutters right now. I'm feeling all the good energy.
I know. Let's just stop here. No, I'm just kidding.
And that's it. We're done. Thanks for boosting our egos. We'll leave now. This podcast is over. You know, let's talk a little bit though, sweetheart. I want to talk about, we haven't had someone that is a shamanic practitioner on the show yet. We haven't had anyone come in here and talk about the indigenous aspect of that type of work. I know from my experience working with indigenous communities that, you know, medicine woman, medicine man, etc., etc. Tell us a little bit about who you are, though. Like, why shamanism? What does it come down to for you?
Well, and honestly, that's a tough one to come to terms with, because nowadays, especially nowadays in this society, there is so much judgment, there is so much division, and um, it's hard to accept the term sometimes. And I've had lots of close friends come to me and be like, "No, you're not." And I said, "Well, this is why. This is why I settled on this term. This is why this makes sense." And I'll tell you the quick story. As a little girl, I grew up in the forest of North Georgia, and I was given free reign to be as wild as I wanted to be. Like, talking the naked, crazy 6-year-old girl running free on the farm. And if the dog came home without me, they knew something was wrong. I was the one playing in the creek, manipulating the water, learning to listen to the trees, taking naps in the trees, building water dams, doing all of the nature things. And I was so deeply connected, and I didn't even know that that's not a common thing. So as I got older and all of these nature connections remained, it became apparent that that was, not the norm. And I realized that I had these special and was honored with these special gifts. The land that I grew up on was Native land many years ago. It was Cherokee land. It was the North Seminole, Florida. It was very far north Georgia, but this mix, and I knew and I could feel the tension. In school in North Georgia, you learn about the Trail of Tears. You learn about all of these things that happened to those beautiful indigenous cultures and how they were eradicated and how they were pushed out. And I get chills and I get emotional about it because it's in my blood. And then as I got older, I talked to my dad and my mom about it. And I was like, why do I feel this so strongly? And my dad goes, well, there's a story in our family about 4 or 5 generations back that they don't really talk about because now people are past. And I was like, well, why do I feel this connection? And he goes, it's because it's in your blood. And I was like, oh, well, there we go. And so the shamanism piece came to me as an adult. And I had been a teacher for 20 years. I'd been a principal for a few years. And COVID hit and my career, I just did not feel aligned anymore. And I said, I'm done. I walked away. And I was so lucky that I had the opportunity. And my husband goes, what are you going to do? I was like, I don't know. But in my heart, I knew I had this calling. So he let me take a week off, take the time and dive in. And that question of what do I want to do was like, I know what I'm called to do. It's not a choice. I have to say yes. So the spirits came to me very clearly and said, you're taking a break. Now's the time. All the things that I get chill bumps to this day. Now's the time for you to say yes to all the things that you know in your heart. You just didn't know that's what it was.
Oh, I love that.
And
Mhm.
so I literally have chill bumps from head to toe. So I said yes. And I just sat with it for about a year. And I said, I don't know what this looks like. I don't know what this means. I don't know what I'm supposed to do with it. And that was about 5, 6 years ago. And immediately the saying of the teacher comes when the student is ready.
Yeah, yeah.
Within a couple months, a mentor showed up on my doorstep for me. I began to just hear things, learn things. My dreams began again, and all of this information started to just flood me in my life. The books started to show up, the relationships started to show up, the ideas of what I was supposed to do with this started to show up, and I just said yes, and I went with it. And now here we are, 6 years later or so. I'm a Reiki energy master. I built a traumatic healing program based on shamanism philosophy, and it just keeps rolling and it's amazing.
Oh, I love that. I love it when it's natural.
Yeah,
There's a lot of people that come into the space of wanting to develop their, and I never call this a gift because everyone is a psychic, everyone's a medium. So for
right.
me, it's like it's got to be a calling though. And I
Yeah,
really find that there is a lot of people who get excited by this kind of work, whether it's shamanism, mediumship, animal communication, they get excited. And I find that the people who love animal communication are like the crazy ones. They're the ones that are so knee deep in their fur babies that they are just like they would give them to Nancy, right? As an animal, just have my baby and tell me what's going on with this baby. You know what I mean? But I find that the people can be over excited about this type of work, and so they're trying to force it. And just
yeah,
because everyone has the innate natural intuitive ability to tap into this doesn't mean that everyone's supposed to be doing it. That is like my motto, baby, just because you can does not mean you should,
right.
right? So I love that yours came so naturally and that you even found, a little bit of an understanding of why you were so connected to the maybe the elements or,
Yeah,
the directions or those things. So for me, I don't know, I don't remember why or how I came to this space. It was all through the spiritualist church. I showed up there one day and was like, okay, this is cool. Nan, she just decided she was going to step out of her closet one day, dining room closet,
Yeah.
her dining room table closet anyway. And but it's natural. It's not like we were forcing it. And sometimes I worry that people do this work for the wrong reasons. So
yeah. Well, and you know how I feel about that. And shamanism is a charged term. And that's why I don't call myself a straight shaman, because I don't get to go live in the forest and be a hermit and support a tribe and a small community in the ways that that used to happen. So in today's modern world, shamanism and the philosophy looks very, very different. 20 years ago,
absolutely.
I would have been very bound to, just work with my indigenous culture. And that's not the information that's come to me. I've been very, very blessed to hear from my guides and the information out there that this world has changed to the point where we have to come together. And part of my calling and my job is to help teach what this connection is about, because it gives people a different value of choosing to live their life in a different way, choosing to connect with nature, to support nature, to help save the Mother Earth that has given us life. That's
Right.
not the same anymore. This last 20 years has shifted to where cultures are coming together to support this greater need. And that's part of what I have to do, is create this community, create union, create the things that help people learn how to do the things that need to be done to save us. Because
Yeah.
it's not like our species is doing our planet much good. Like, let's be honest, is we're not all doing our best. And that's a big piece. Is I've been able to learn cultural piece from Peruvian shamanism, and even Asian dialect information through other continents and things, like building this melting pot of what the United States is with many different cultures anyway, and coming from multiple backgrounds and multiple information, we have more to teach, more to share, more to learn, more to absorb. And I love the fact that it's not as isolated as it used to be.
I
That's
love that you
interesting.
said that. Sorry, Tara. I love
No,
that you
no,
said
go ahead.
that. Because I know one of the things in Canada that we tread very lightly on is cultural appropriation.
Yes.
And it's one of the reasons I didn't deep dive into shamanism. Do I practice multiple levels of it? 100%. The animal stuff obviously really resonates with me, but my background is German and my husband is from, Celtic background. And even when you go deep there, there's shamanism in the Celtic world, right? And so I find everybody right now is being so sensitive of these labels, but
Yeah.
we all feel this need to label ourselves, right? When at the end of the day, we're all doing the work for the right reason. We're all doing it from a great place of energy and ethics and integrity. And it's like, oh, yes, right? We want to elevate Gaia's energy. We want to make sure that animals are held in much more better respect than they are now. Trees, elementals, all of those things. So I love that you're deep diving into this and exploring it in such an authentic way.
Thanks. Well, I took the term really, really seriously. And when I landed, I was like, yeah, medicine woman makes sense. All of these things, priest, I get the terms. But when it really came down to it, I ended up choosing it not for really a political reason, but to raise the awareness of
Mm,
this doesn't have to be a stigma. This doesn't have to be a negative. There's a reason I landed on this because it truly represents my calling. And
yeah.
so
I
I
do want to say this though. I'm like kudos to you, girlfriend, because I will never forget having a conversation with an elder and talking about shamanism, and he burst out laughing and he said, "What a white word. What a white term. We don't call them shamans, we call them medicine men or medicine women." And I was so taken aback. I was like, "Well, what do you mean?" And he didn't really elaborate, to be honest with you. He just kind of threw this at me and said, "Ah, what a white term, typical. What a white term." And I was like, "Fair enough." But I can feel that though sometimes when oh, I'm a shaman. If people instantly want to know your receipts,
right.
Yes.
right?
We
What
just
makes
study
you a
anybody.
shaman, girlfriend, that you can go around talking like that? And this actually is something that I find disempowering.
Yeah.
I really do. Not for you, Janet, like honestly, but for the people that are so wrapped up in what are you doing? Now, if you are selling, beaded work and you're doing all this stuff and whatever, that's not, and you don't have any cultural background and et cetera, that's a whole different ballgame. And I get that. But I really feel that when people are so quick to find fault,
Yeah.
Hmm.
they really are missing the whole point. And
Mhm.
there's going to be, a half a dozen people that really aren't doing it for the right reason. They are appropriating, they are coming from a negative place, but there's going to be double that are doing the work for the right reason, that have it, that have something in them that someone needs to if they need that. What am I trying to say to you? If they need to have that answer about why do you think you get to call yourself that, then ask the bloody question, but don't put an expectation or judgment on it when you ask it.
Yeah, I
And
have
can I,
experienced a lot of that. And being the white blonde woman that I am naturally, I mean, I get pretty dark and tan, but I mean, it is what it is. I look how I look and I stand strong and I love how I look and it is what, but I've had when I first rolled out and said, I'm going to stand strong on this term because one, it introduces people to an idea of what I do, and that's
Yeah.
helpful. But
mm,
two, I had some friends come to me like, you're no shaman. And I said, you're right. I'm not a shaman. I'm a practitioner. And I'm here to share the information of a shamanic philosophy. And then
Beautiful.
and 2 years later, they became a client. And they were like, okay, I see the work. And I see how you've modernized it to be the healing in our society. Because this societal healing that we're trying to do now and working together now, what our traumas are now are not the traumas that my great 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 grandmother had back in
mhm.
the forest in her world. That's not the same. So there's no way I can be doing that same work. But I'm honoring her work and that family's work by healing and working with the society we do have. So I stand strong in it and I'll take it and I'll answer the questions and I'll smile through it. And if it's not the right person, then they're not drawn to me.
That's
Yeah,
it.
I love it. And
Yeah.
can I just say I'm jealous of your childhood? I'm so jealous of your childhood. And the only thing I keep seeing is you writing a children's book about this. Like,
I have.
have you really?
It's just not out yet. So I have 3 books in the wings that I'm working on. I have one, Spirit Animals of the Sea, because I grew up in North Georgia, but I spent all my summers in Miami. And the ocean is like, oh, my ocean.
What a
And
difference. I
I
grew
know.
up in North Georgia, but I was chilling in Miami.
Miami Beach was one of my, but all these little places. And I have such a calling to be with the sea animals too. And so I go back as often as I can now. My husband loves the ocean as well. And when I went to find some of this information of spirit animals and I was learning more about some of that depth years ago, there's no book on spirit animals of the sea. There's nothing. There's mermaid card decks. There's all this stuff. So I was like, well, gosh darn, I'm just going to do it myself. So and I'm working on edits on that right now. And then a couple weeks ago, a story of, do you know how to, the mouse a cookie story? If you give a mouse a cookie, and then it goes on like this train of silly things that happen if you give a mouse a cookie.
Oh, I
And so
like
I
that
had that
though.
thought in my head. It's a really cute little book. It's been out for a while. And I had this story in my head about this. If a bird wakes up in the morning, it tells the sun to rise, blah, 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 blah. And it goes on this little train of living as a child, noticing the things in nature that happen on a daily basis as you go through the daily cycle. So I
I love
started that and I'm almost done. And my godmother is going to be the illustrator. She's a watercolorist in Georgia, and I'm super excited because she's similar on the path. And then about 3 weeks ago in college, I used to write poetry. About 3 weeks ago, it came back. And I haven't really written in a long time. And all of a sudden, all these things started coming. So I've put on my Facebook groups and pages a couple poems in the past 3 weeks, probably about 6. And they're nature poems or, character trait lesson poems or whatever. So
I
yeah,
love
they're
this.
coming. They're coming.
I love it. I love that so much.
Man,
That's
we should do a
fantastic.
book. If you give Tara a cookie, or you could do a book, you
No,
give Tara
no,
a trigger.
no. I was just gonna say we're gonna do if you give Tara a trigger, then yeah, we gotta have a Tara's trigger book. That'll do it.
There's so
We
many
so
things I
do.
can see with this. You could do a card deck on all the triggers,
And,
how to work on it, how to solve it. If this trigger arises, you can blah, blah. I don't know.
I swear to the great goddess, we would make millions.
We
We
would.
would be set for life. Tara's triggers, and that has stuck with me since Nan named that. And we've been going through that. And every time something happens, I'm like, Tara's trigger, Tara's trigger, Tara's trigger. Who knew I had that many triggers until we started the podcast? I certainly did not. Talk to me a little bit, girlfriend, about the bone tossing.
Yeah.
Is this something that people love? And here's a really, really, you're going to be I'm pretty sure this will be out before we do the October 19th virtual fair online. And you're going to be a part of that. And I don't think people really understood what you were doing when you were at the first virtual fair. And they loved it when you talked about it. They loved that and they were all in. And then they were like, well, I don't know what I'm going to get from it. Can you talk a little bit to that?
So with the bone tossing, it's a very different, unique way of doing divination, and it's not common. And so it's also a term is osteomancy, but I don't really go by that because it was taught to me as bone tossing or
Thank
curious.
God, because I couldn't even say that if I wanted to. Tara's trigger 17,110,10. Anyway, go on.
And so it was passed down to me as something that the guides of my mentor told me that I needed to be doing. So they practiced it with me, and it was a beautiful practice, and it stuck with me. And then they're like, you're supposed to be doing this. As a little girl, I found bones and things everywhere I went. And my porch, the house that I grew up in was hand built by trees on the property. Anyway, long story, there was a front porch that had a big railing all the way around it. And I lined it with the arrowheads and the artifacts that I found. And I lined it with the bones of things that I found on our property. We had 18 acres. And we still have that property. And it's beautiful and sacred. And I got to visit the first time in a long time last Christmas. Anyway, so the railing was lined with all of the bones and turtle shells and all of the things that came to me as a kid. And I honored and I just loved them. And they spoke to me and had stories. And my dad would be like, so what's this turtle about? And I was like, well, and I could tell the story of the turtle's life. And as a kid, it was like just imagination. And later on, I realized, oh no, I'm receiving information about this. And so that's
Hello,
sort of
turtle.
when it was presented to me, that it shifted. This shifted my viewpoint. And so I trained and I practiced, and it took me about a year to put together a kit of about 65 different pieces. And there are some bones and there's some curio items. And it provides a story to the client or querent about whatever hard question they're coming to the table with. It's not a yes or no answer. And it talks about past, present, and future. And one side of the mat is more likely to happen or less likely. And we know that I can't predict the future, and anything someone does will change their future, possibly. We don't know. And so that's accepted, but it helps them resonate with their question and their story and have ideas about how to get to whatever answer they're looking for. It has information about elements. It has information about emotional things, things that might have happened in their past, closing challenges, buttoning up situations. And it's all, the stories change because of how everything lands on the mat.
Right.
And so you might ask the same question and I could answer it 4 different ways, but the toss is based on the information from how things land on the mat. And you as the client, you choose an item that represents you, you choose the mat. And it takes me, I mean, doing it this way has worked really well, like fairly quickly. But normally when I do it, I connect with the guides and they tell me, you know, you might want to put this on the altar to represent the person. And I receive information of those things before I even toss the bones or the items.
Oh,
So
I
we
love
connect
Toss the bones.
beforehand.
I
I
love
know.
this card. It's
And
this
so
reminds me a lot of well I do something similar with crystals, and this reminds me also of a runes, right? Like in the sense that, so are you bringing their guides in and deriving that information from working with their higher self and their guides?
exactly. And
Mhm.
so when I'm telling the story of each item has a base meaning that is specific to what I've been told for each item. But then
Nice.
with each story, each toss, their guides, their ancestors are communicating to me what else to elaborate with that story. So
Mm.
let's say I pull and both of you have the purple star. And the purple star is all about a certain situation, but I might be able to pull different information, the base information, and then a little elaboration for Tara, and then yours might be in a completely different spot on the mat, Nancy. And
Mhm.
then it has a completely different meaning, but still that base meaning, but it has this elaboration based on where it landed, what it's surrounded by. And everything falls like in little clumps. So there's like little stories that go together, and you start reading the stories. And as you keep going, it creates more and more of an answer to the complicated question.
That is
I'm
so cool.
telling you, girlfriend, we need to go live and do this so people can see it.
It's
Mhm.
really, really neat. And so I've developed, like I said, I have about 65 pieces. A full reading is about 45 minutes to an hour, depending on how much we end up talking. And then I've narrowed it down to do faster ones, smaller ones with about 30 items. So I took out like the most prevalent, all the elements, all the, certain ones that are necessary versus the elaboration ones.
Right.
So that's what I'll be presenting in October, is the smaller ones so that we can get through a little bit more.
Oh, I love that. I do. I think it's really important when we talk about things like ancestral work and guides and bone tossing and your chakra board with the crystals, that we are engaging in what works with us, right? Like that crystal board that you made, Nancy, that may not resonate, with my guides and I. If I was to use, everything resonates with me, but it may not. And
Yeah.
the right people will come to those types of callings, right? Different modalities. And I think it's really important that people realize, I mean, I'm going to say something that's going to trigger someone other than me, but, mediums are a dime a dozen right now. Intuitive readers are a dime a dozen. Card readers are a dime a dozen. Are the good ones a dime a dozen? Absolutely not. Are the authentic ones? Absolutely not. But when you come in with something like that chakra board or this bone tossing, and I kind of feel left out, I'm gonna have to figure something to throw over my shoulder or something when I read. But um, I just envisioned all sorts of things. Let's just stop
I
that.
I
Yeah,
see black
we're gonna
salt
go
over
down.
one and cinnamon going over
That's
another.
right. I'll just be, someone will be walking past me and get a shot in the eye. I think it's really empowering to go to someone who does something that's slightly different and offers a bit of a different look. And because we aren't fortune tellers, and that is such a key thing that comes up over and over again. And the longer I do this work, the more I find myself having to repeat that to people. You know, you are getting way too caught up in all of this. No one can read your future because you have free will choice. So this chakra board and this bone tossing is a beautiful way to tell a story about what could be or was or is it presently.
Yeah.
Such a beautiful way to move into that space. And I just want to say that I think your authenticity is so bang on. So if someone's coming at you, baby, and says, you're not a shaman, you say, I'm not, I'm a shamanista. Go ask Tara. Go
I
ask
get-
Tara. She said it.
I think you need to run with this term now. You need to like change all your branding. You're
I'm
a
telling you.
shamanista. Yeah.
There's
Yeah.
something about that just makes me sing. It feels
You
like it's got the masculine side to it, but it's got that feminine, and it just brings that balance. But regardless, my point in what I was saying though was literally that I feel that you're offering someone something different. It's not just a uh and I don't mean just the work that I do is powerful and purposeful, but this gives a bit of a visual. It gives a bit of a place where they can sit in that understanding. Sometimes when you sit with me, I'll talk so fast and furious that if you're not recording, you're going to miss it.
Well, and that's a big piece for me is I make sure with this reading that I record them, and each person that does it privately, I record it as a video, 1-to-1. And the video, the app that I use, it also keeps keynotes. Because like I said, the information for the future that comes through, it can last a long time. My first reading that was given to me lasted about 9 months. And I went back and watched my video probably a dozen times. And every time I watched it, I was like, oh, that made more sense. And that gave me more information. And it also led me and helped answer my question more towards the calling of what I was looking for with my question, because it kept feeding me information. So it's not just a one-time, oh, here's some advice, here's an idea. It's sort of a pathway with the story. And if people pay attention, it doesn't tell them what to do, but it reminds them of what's going to help them stay in alignment or fall into alignment. And that's the real piece that is so powerful, is it really takes a storyline and helps someone continue towards the alignment that they're asking for in their question. And it's fun to watch too.
there's the magic right there.
Right. And
Right.
making sure that spirit never tells us what to do.
No.
Like spirit is not sitting up there going, oh, Nan, you didn't do what we wanted you to do. Right. So it doesn't work like that. But people want it to. And that's something that, you know, another point is that people really do want to be told what to do. It takes the nuance off them, right? It takes the whole like, oh, I got to make a decision. I got to do it. I'm just going to go and ask spirit.
Yeah.
I'm just going to go and ask spirit. And that's the other thing that I really, and I'd love to know either one of yours opinion or both of your opinions on this. I'm really like done with the whole kind of, oh, I'm just going to leave it in spirit's hands.
I get that. So my parents growing up, they were both had traumatic childhoods, and they call themselves hippies, but back to the landers specifically. They're pretty unique people, as you might know or can tell. And they really helped me grow up with that, oh, the universe will provide, we'll work it out. And because they didn't have the answers that they wanted or the finances or a lot of the things, but they really lived their life by letting the universe provide to them. And one, as an adult, drove me insane because I didn't learn a lot of the lessons I needed to learn financially, et cetera, how to work with the world and society and blah, blah, blah. But it also gave me the freedom to say the universe can provide, but to get where you want to go, you still have to take action.
Yes.
So that's balance. That's that middle ground that I come to the table with, but I've lived it, which is so cool that I can say I firsthand lived by like, we didn't know the next meal was, the fridge was empty, but the garden was full.
Right.
We lived by the universe will provide. And it was a completely unique way of growing up. And it provided me with a lot of interesting insight of living that way. But as an adult, it was like, I get that, But if I don't do something, I'm not going to get to where I want to be. So there you go. You gotta do what you gotta do too.
I think a lot of people use it as an excuse though,
I think
right?
so too.
Like a lot of people use it as like, well, you know what? I'm really not going to do the work. And because
But
yeah, because I don't know how to do the work. So instead of me learning how to do the work, I'm just going to leave it in spirit's hands. And when it doesn't come to fruition, when spirit doesn't provide, then I'm going to go back and I'll be like, well, spirit left me down. That comes to the prayer thing too, right? Nan's heard me talk about this before, and I'm sure she's going to be like, oh God, here we go again. But it's the same thing with prayers. I am not begging anyone to do anything for me because spirit works with us, not for us. Whatever you believe in, God, Goddess, Buddha, Krishna, creator, source, whatever. And when I'm putting out that energy, please, please, God, do this, and it doesn't come to fruition, I almost, or not me, but someone else would be the person that would be like, oh, well, God didn't do it for me. So they can go down two rabbit holes with that. Oh, I'm not worthy. God doesn't love me enough, or whatever,
right.
doesn't love me enough, or this is all a fraud.
But I've also found those people that say this didn't work and I don't want these two lanes and I want to learn how. So that's where I came to the table a little bit differently, because those are the people that are ready to step up for themselves and say, I know that I need to do the work, but I believe that spirit will provide if I do the work. But I don't know how to do the work. So who's going to show me how to do the work? So that's when I ended up developing my traumatic healing realign and rise program, was showing them how to do the work. And I
Nice.
came to it with the shamanic philosophy, and that's my like signature main program. Besides the bone tossing for divination, that's where I do the real work with the people that are ready to say, yes, I want to learn how to be spiritual and work with what's out there, meet my guides, meet my spirit animals, and do the work. So that's the other piece. And it's a chakra based. So, Nancy, we're going to have to talk. It's a chakra based, energy based shamanic philosophy program that works through trauma in lots of different lights. And it's multiple modalities as well. So, including crystal work, because I have a lithotherapy certification as well. So, good stuff.
Oh my God. I love it. I love it. And chakras are, in my view, I don't know, I'm sure Nan's going to agree with me, but chakras is the number one thing. If you do mentorship with me or any program, you need to know your chakras. You need to know how to align yourself with it, because that is the greatest tool that spirit has ever provided us. And if you can just automatically, subconsciously work with that energy and learn how to do that, it's going to take a load off your plate. You will be
Yeah.
realigning when you don't even know you needed to be realigned.
That's
Yep.
right.
And it's a big piece. So that's my big work, is working through that realign and rise program, guiding people. And it does take about a year. But we work from birth to death in their world and work on all of the, I call them developmental challenges, not crises in between, of developing. And each chakra has that timeline of developmental age development through each one, like the root is 0 to 6 for age. And so it helps
Right.
with parenting, and it helps with realizing the things you didn't learn and going back and realigning with the things that you didn't learn to fix the adult behaviors with that integration of how not to do the things you didn't learn. And it's just beautiful. So that's my other major fun that goes with it. And I offer the bone tossing as like, if you're struggling through the program, well, let's answer some extra questions.
Toss.
Right. Let's just do a bone toss, or I'll make them a crystal grid or a whatever. Like, the list is long. So
That's awesome. I love that. Listen, we have not totally talked about my favorite thing yet. Talk to me about animals. Talk to me about the guides that you work with.
so mine are multiple, and some stay with me longer than others, guide wise. And I have one main like totem guide that has stayed with me since I was little, and I mean I know where she lives, and it's one of my power spots in Tennessee, and it's just one of the most perfect spots. And it's one of those places you go and you just feel all encompassing and like you're glowing.
Nice.
And so she's been with me as my main guide for many decades. And I remember her as a child. I just didn't know that's what this was. And then spirit animals, my main totem is the dragonfly.
Dragonfly.
And the message from the dragonfly that has really brought me the gift of the dragonfly is to be able to look at things completely non-judgmentally, because their eyes have over 50,000 facets. And so dragonflies can look at things in every direction and not judge any direction, just take in the information for what it is and provide for what it is. So
Ooh.
that's why the dragonfly is so powerful for me. And then different things come in through time. I've worked with tons of different power animals over the time, and you just take the medicine as it comes. Some stay for longer than others. This week was interesting. I'm sitting here in my office and my son comes in and he goes, pardon my French, he goes, "Holy shit." I was like, "What?" He goes, "Mom." And I look outside and sitting on our shed is the biggest great horned owl I have ever seen in my entire life. And these
Wow.
little things happen to me. And I have another turtle story that I shared with Tara recently too. And I went out and he just looked at me. He sat there for about an hour and I listened to his stories and why he was there. And the Blue Jays didn't like him. They were literally dive bombing him. And I heard the discord and the Blue Jays stories. And I just asked him, I said, I appreciate your visit and sharing with the story with me. And it was beautiful, but I'd love a feather. He left me a feather.
I love it. That's
And
awesome.
I mean, who knew? And he didn't do anything. He just sat there in the yard. And why would he drop a feather? But it was just fascinating. And so that's like the thank you for hearing me kind of.
Mm-hmm.
And it was such a gift. And so he's sitting on my desk with me. Last couple weeks ago, I went to Florida because we needed ocean time. And before we left, I dubbed it the trip of the turtle for no reason. I just was like, it's the time of year. I know there's going to be turtle eggs and you can see it. I'm just excited to see all the little nests that are marked off. And when I got there by the hotel in Orlando, there's like turtles everywhere because you had to take a boat to go where there was turtles everywhere. Like every time we would walk out to the boat, there was 20 turtles and I was like, oh, geez, here we go. And then I get to the ocean and the first thing I find in the sand is a tiny bit of a turtle shell. And I
Nice.
was just in awe. And it's just those kinds of things keep happening. And they will because I honor and I respect. And so
Mm-hmm.
then I really, dive into the turtle medicine and it's just I love it. It's so special.
Yeah. It really is. And I mean, that for me, I mean, I can talk about animals till the cows come home because it's my jam. And so I love stories. I love the serendipitous come
Yeah.
together when they're giving us messages, when they're giving us support. My muggle job this week has been quite frustrating for me. And one of my main power animals that's been with me since I can even remember has been a raven. And I walked out of the office in a really, really frustrated sense. And literally I saw one land in a tree and he started calling to me. And I just heard it's going to be okay.
Yeah.
I was like, thanks, I needed that. Because he just knew I was so frustrated. And I was like, in the area, it's mostly eagles over there. So like it's even more special when they go out of their way to come to where they're normally not nesting and say, hey, Nan, I got a message for you, right? So I love that. I love that.
I mean, I'll be driving down the highway and a big red-tailed hawk will just come fly by the car and I'll be like, oh, that tells me I need to ask my husband if he's okay because that's his main totem animal. And so I'll call him and be like, hey, you're okay for the day? And he's like, oh, I had blah, blah, blah. And it's like, all right, well, the hawk just told me I had to check in.
Yeah.
And I mean, it never fails. And so when you create these relationships, I had a couple years where just different birds would come to me for different things. And it was the summer of the birds.
Yeah.
And so when they come, I absorb the message, take the message, and then I always ask, am I supposed to share this message? Is this one for me? Is this one for something else? And that's where that deeper level of communication has come. Because sometimes they'll be like, no, I'm only coming to you because I know you can relay the message.
Yeah.
Nice.
And that's really, really fun for me because then I'm like, well, who's this for? Who do I get to bless today with this random story? And so then I'll call them and be like, hey, so and so said, and yes, I might be deemed a little out there for it, but I love the ability to share these messages. So
Yeah.
that's really special.
I'm jealous. I'm jealous. I love my badger. So my power animal is a badger. My main animal is a badger. I've told this story a million times, but I'm not, and so I'm not going to get into it. I had hoped for something. I don't know what I was hoping for, but I got badger. My husband thinks that's the best thing that ever happened. He thought that was so funny when he looked it up and read it. And the one time that I've ever seen a badger in the flesh was actually in Kamloops at I was going to say a resort. What is with me and just coming up with a name? I was at an animal resort. It was, they were all sunning
It's
and
the, yeah,
anyway, and I
it's,
walked up to this badger.
it's not a zoo. It's a play. It's like an environmental,
Yeah, I don't know why.
uh,
Conservation. I
yeah,
don't know what it was. Anyway, it was
conservation
very hot when it
location.
were. Anyway, and I went up to it and I was so happy to see it. And it just wouldn't look at me. It just wouldn't look at me, wouldn't look at me. I was taking pictures of its butt, you know, and I was like, oh, and then all of a sudden I was like, okay, well, I'm done. I mean, I'm not going to stand here for 3 years waiting for this badger to, you know, and it just turned around. It gave me the most like, I don't even know how to say it, disgusted look, almost like you didn't want me, girl. You were looking for the eagle or the buffalo or whatever, and you got me, and now I'm giving you the butt. Anyway, but I do love my badger because if you do read what a badger stands for, it really is. It goes with a Scorpio like nobody's
It
business.
does.
And a
It,
Manny Jenny, right?
yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah,
And
and you get to the point where, you have the dragonfly is like my grounding, always reminder. This is how I walk and work, by the viewing of multiple things and taking in and being able to process that way. That is like my main, not ability, but, and not necessarily a gift, but that is how I walk, part of
yeah,
my. And then the different animals come in different things. Like I have all kinds of different feathers. I have a hummingbird that hangs above my desk because the hummingbird significance is super important to me and came to me for many things. And then I have collections of crystal animals and clients that were doing our program, and they might need an extra little bit of support. And so I'll make a grid with their power animal or one of the animals that's coming to them through their work, with the main crystal animal, bear or hummingbird or whatever it might be, as the center. And so I've been able to work with multiple animals at different times and for different people.
Yeah.
And that's just, it's so fun because for decades, centuries, we haven't listened to these stories. The
No.
birds used to bring the stories of creation and share from generation to generation all of these beautiful stories and these folklores, and we just don't have it anymore. And so when we hear it, I'm compelled, I have to share it because that's part of how I'm supposed to be doing this work. So I share it loud and clear, and I'll take it however crazy far I have to take it.
I love it.
beautiful. Love that so much. Nan, I think we have come to our spot where it is time to tell people how they can find my lovely, beautiful friend here. And
And ask our closing questions.
yes, I think it's that time. So first, let's start with, how do they find you, gorgeous? How do people find you?
Word of mouth is very big, and I value that tremendously. I have a website, lifeoutsidetheLinesconsulting.com, that has lots of contact information and all my services and programs listed. And then I'm most active on Facebook on my Life Outside the Lines page and my group, Soulful Connections. And I have a plant medicine group called Mind Well Plant Medicine, or Mind Well Plant Medicine with Jana, or something like that.
They can find you on Facebook
Yeah,
and your
Facebook.
website, right?
I'm doing my spirit animal videos on TikTok, and I'm somewhat on Instagram as Life Outside the Lines. And I need to get better at Instagram, but it's
Me
there.
too. Me too, baby, but I'm trying. And we
Yeah.
will have all that down in the comments and in the credits. So don't you worry about that. We got you covered. Nancy,
All
ask
right.
a question. Beautiful.
So, what is the best piece of advice you have gotten from your mentor, and what is the best piece of advice you would give to anyone out there listening right now?
Piece of advice for anyone listening: if you feel the nudge to say yes for yourself, do it. It will change you for the better for the rest of your life. And if
Yes.
you don't say yes to the nudge, it's going to come back and get you over and over until you do say yes. And those lessons are going to repeat. The best advice for my mentor is that there's going to be ups and there's going to be downs, and I should not question myself. I know my abilities, I know my strengths, and I know I'm here doing the purpose that I'm called to do, and it's not about anybody else. This isn't a paycheck. I mean, it is a paycheck, but it's not for that purpose. This isn't about, being and traveling and doing all the crazy things. This is about serving the calling and really being of service to the people that are ready for my medicine.
Amen.
I love it. Woo! Mic
Amen.
drop.
Okay, here's my question because I'm never as deep as Nancy is. So let's do this. Let's do this. Who would you love to have spiritual tea with?
Oh, I don't know.
I
That's
always say go with the first person that comes with you, baby.
I have no idea because every spiritual conversation that I have with anyone that's really in it of integrity, I feel blessed to have. So
Aww.
truly though, like there's never been like one main idol of anything. Um, I really value Sandra Ingerman's words because I've
Mhm.
seen what she can do. And at first I was a little skeptic of Philando, what is his name? I forget. But he's super big in the shaman world.
Alberto Villando.
Yes. And
Yeah.
the more that I hear what he says, the more authenticity I get from his information. But I think my experience over that is I would truly love to visit Peru with someone of integrity that understood. And it would be the experience of something, not just the person I'm with. That would be fabulous. Getting more deep into the dirt of the culture in multiple areas. That would be like my shamanistic dream would to be go to all of those cultural based places to feel the dirt, the real dirt under my feet.
Oh, well
Jana,
done.
you have had so many mic drop moments. This is going to be one of our best podcasts, most listened to. I just know it.
I hope so. It's fun for me. I love talking about it because it's just I never being a teacher was always fun, but it wasn't fully fulfilling. And then shifting and feeling the difference and healing from that fairly traumatic career has been such a transformation that this is just pure joy and fun for me. And
Mhm.
seeing the transformation in all of my clients is just the icing on top of
Ah,
all of it. So it truly is, I just enjoy all of it so much.
And girlfriend, you're coming out here to Vancouver. All the locals that are watching, we are going to be blessed with the presence of this lovely woman. She's going to be out here. We're doing a retreat in June 2025, and she will be at several different locations, bone tossing and doing all sorts of things. So stay tuned. Make sure you continue following us. Make sure you give us a like on Spotify, Apple, wherever you watch us or listen to us or whatever you do with us. Go to YouTube too. Follow us all over the place. Make sure that you are inviting your friends. There's going to be someone that friends, that will want to see this episode. Trust me.
Yay. Thank you guys so much.
Thanks for coming on, Jana. And thanks everyone for listening, and stay tuned for the next podcast.